a lot of people, when you say passementerie, they imagine quite old-fashioned kind of designs, or they maybe imagine, you know, things that you find in the National Trust, you know, extremely traditional, historical. This feels very contemporary and very exciting and very colourful, very bright. Welcome back to Artfully Crafted. My name is Eleanor, and each week I take you to a craft person's studio, interview them and show you their work. This week we're headed to Stockwell to meet with passementerie designer Elizabeth Ashdown. Elizabeth is one of 4 people in the UK who still makes passementerie by hand, and passementerie as an interior designer is just such a fascinating and exciting subject. So I was really keen to interview someone who focuses on that discipline so I could ask them lots of really in-depth questions about it. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Hi Lizzie.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. We're here in your wonderful studio in Stockwell. And you've got 2 spaces. We're upstairs and then you've got another area downstairs.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was going to say the elephant in the room, but Big Bertha in the room.
Big Bertha, my fabulous loom behind you. Yes, she is a 1970s rug loom that I have appropriated for passementerie.
And we have, okay, you've said the word, passementerie, as you wanted me to say. I promise, he asked me to say it with the French accent. So please do introduce passementerie, because I feel like a lot of people don't, unfortunately, don't know what it is and how it's used.
So you are holding up just one element of passementerie. This is a majestic tassel. So passementerie, in a nutshell, is an umbrella craft full of a huge array of textile crafts. So weaving, crochet, embroidery, tassel making, rosette making, cord spinning, kind of you name it. But passementerie traditionally is the way of creating small-scale textiles, highly decorative textiles, that are then applied to another textile for the sake of beauty. So think about curtain braids, fringes, curtain tiebacks, etc., that type of thing. And it is an art. I say it's the art and craft of passementerie.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so you would see this, like that could be hung with curtains, right? For a curtain tieback.
Yes, that would look amazing on a curtain. Can you imagine a double curtain tieback with that on? This is admittedly a kind of me showing off slightly.
As you should.
It's almost every single tassel technique that there is, and it's all made by loads of different hand processes. It's not made on Big Bertha. Inside here, there's lots of wooden moulds that are then all wrapped and joined.
Oh, and we've got some
Yes, I do. Us. So wooden moulds just like this are then hand wrapped with silk. This is silk and cotton.
Yeah.
A technique called satin shading. So all these bits, you can see that bit is the bit that's actually sitting in there.
Yeah, in here.
Yeah, in there. And the wood stays in there. So this is all formed around wood.
And you don't make the wood yourself. You actually order this from a wood turner?
Correct.
Is that
Nigel, I commissioned a wood turner to make all of this for me. So I have to do all the drawings. Or if I'm recreating something and I've got a mould, I send it to him and he copies it. So all of that's hand turned.
And then how do you do this then, the thread on it?
So that's called satin shading.
Yeah.
And it's a little bunch of threads that's attached to a piece of linen thread with a wool needle tied onto one end. So it's very low tech, and it's basically wrapped around under tension. So it's wrapped all the way around. I've got something called a third hand, which is this thing. Thank you. So blacksmith made that, and the threads wrapped around to keep under tension. So I'd have that in front of me, and then that would be here, and then I would be there, and it would be wrapped around.
Okay.
So that's all covered. You've got ruff, which is made on a knitting needle. You've got netting, which is another technique, very similar to embroidery. You've got this beautiful bit up here, interlacing.
Okay.
Handmade pom-poms, handmade tassels, a bullion skirt, and then a very special technique here called cartisan. So cartisan, C-A-R-T-I-S-A-N, which is basically wrapped card.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And we could travel back in time and we could meet a Tudor passementerie maker in the city of London, because that's where most of it was made.
Yeah.
And they would be working with almost identical techniques, skills, particularly in terms of weaving. The weaving has not changed very much at all. And we'd be able to have a really good chat about passementerie.
Amazing. And the weaving, we do have an example. Yes.
I'll pop that there.
So we've got, this can be a beautiful, can be used on a curtain tie back, for example.
Tie back,
But other uses, still with curtains, right?
Well, you can use it any way that you wish. So typically anything woven, so it's all woven that way, but something like this, it would either be used that way, amazing on a curtain, or you could use it that way around lampshade, an ottoman, put it on your walls, trim your walls.
Yeah.
However, use it as a really beautiful frame for a beautiful piece of art. You know, you can use it in thousands and thousands of different ways.
And this is cord, right?
Correct.
That's also, again, is that cord as
that's
well?
cord as well. That's called a bullion cord.
Yeah.
And then this is just a 4-ply cord.
Right.
But
so it's like every single level of this is a different technique. And then here again, it's like a similar kind
Correct.
of use, but done differently.
Yeah.
And then this is the woven part.
That's
right?
it. That's the woven part.
So that's actually what the kind of thing that you would do on the Big Bertha.
On Big Bertha, yeah. And that, obviously that's just a little sample. But I could be weaving kind of 15, 20 metres of the same design for a client, depending on what they wanted.
And we have so many exciting...
Yes.
Okay, I feel like this is something that we need to address right away, because one of the reasons I wanted to interview you specifically is because, I mean, I love passementerie. It's absolutely wonderful.
Good.
I got really excited walking in here. I was like, oh my God, I'm in like Disneyland, Aladdin's Cave, like sweet shop, like whatever analogy, like you name it, I'm here. But a lot of people, when you say passementerie, they imagine quite old-fashioned kind of designs, or they maybe imagine, you know, things that you find in a National Trust, you know, extremely traditional, historical. This feels very contemporary and very exciting and very colourful, very bright.
It is. But do you know what's so interesting? So with the Mega Tassel, or with woven designs like this one, you know, these are very much rooted in classical passementerie designs. You could go back to a Victorian kind of sitting room or drawing room and you would see things just like this, but they wouldn't be in that colour. So the huge aspect of my work for me is it's all about colour, and I start with colour first of all. Colour is my primary material.
Yes, because I think you actually, there's some examples around the room of your drawings, your paintings, right? Yeah. So that's really how you start. You're really sketching everything.
Correct. Everything starts in my sketchbook, where I do loads of, as you say, drawings, paintings, embroideries. I've got a jar next to the loom where I keep all my cuttings. So warps or anything that, you know, I don't need in the project, and then I get them all out and tip them onto a page and see what I can do with them. And then it's all built up through intuition, and then that's how I design my collections or my work. Now it's a bit different. If I'm doing something for a client, I probably will approach it in a different way. But if it's me experimenting and playing around, it certainly all starts in a sketchbook and then is built up from there.
And colour-led.
It's all colour-led, because the colour makes a tremendous difference. I mean, we've probably all seen very kind of heavy curtain trimmings, you think, oh God, that's awful, in dark reds or blues or, you know, heavy, dirgy colours.
I mean, there's a time and place for it.
So there absolutely is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and like, you know, when you're looking at historical properties, like it is absolutely right and in context. Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's all about being in keeping with the room or the garment or the hat that it's going on. But for me, a huge driver, because my craft is endangered, there's only 4 of us that still make it by hand in the UK. It might be about to be reclassified as critically endangered. A huge driver for me is actually about making this amazing craft relevant to modern audiences. That's one of the reasons I think it's endangered, although it's very complicated, is because it still has a very kind of old-fashioned reputation.
Yes. Well, I think there's an element of it, you know, you've briefly touched on the many different techniques that are involved in this. And obviously, because you know all of these different techniques, you can design with those techniques in mind. You understand the limitations of the different techniques. For, you know, there's a structure to it. It's like, and particularly, you know, when you're talking about, oh, I'm commissioning a wood turner to make the internal structure, like you've got to understand at least some wood turning, I would imagine, even to understand what's possible, etc., etc. So it's, you know, if you're someone who then doesn't know all of this about the craft itself and how it's made, how do you design for it? And if you don't know how to design for it, how do you then use it, I guess, right?
Correct. And that comes back to kind of education, but particularly in the use of passementerie. There are so many interior designers that just won't use it because they don't know how to use it, because it seems really intimidating. But it isn't. You know, it's, to me, they're small works of art, and that's the function that they have, particularly in interiors. It's jewellery. It's jewellery for the home, which I think just sums it up so perfectly.
It does.
It's about elevating a space, personalising a space. But lots of people just don't know how to use it. You know, particularly if you go into a showroom and there'll be sort of small samples maybe in a book, and you're just looking at it thinking, well, I can't envisage how that's going to look.
Also, in, again, going back to that sort of a historic homes kind of setting, you know, you wouldn't have necessarily have had, you know, a big elaborate curtain tassel in a bedroom, you know, unless it's Chatsworth or something like that. But you would have had the very elaborate, again, if it's jewellery, you know, taking that analogy of you've got your everyday rings, but then you might have your cocktail ring or something that's quite exciting, or you might have your tiara that you're wearing on your wedding day. Exactly. So your drawing room, the ballroom, you know, the wow spaces. So is, you know, are you going to have or find passementerie in every area of your home? No. But if you want to really, you know, to make one of your rooms just that much more special.
Exactly. And, you know, you can do some really amazing things with trim. And the aspect I love about it is that you can personalise anything, any cushion. You can go to, I don't know, John Lewis or wherever and go and get quite a nice cushion, but anyone else could go to John Lewis and buy the cushion. But it's about how you then apply the tassel, how you apply the trim or the pom-pom that just elevates it. But it's true and makes it your own. And, you know, you can buy a cheaper curtain, ready-made curtain, or you can have a curtain made in a cheaper fabric. But then the way to make it really special is by putting the trim on it.
Yeah.
Or the amazing tie back.
Yeah. It's really, and can we have this one?
Of course.
Oh my God, look at that colour. It's incredible. I feel like what would be quite interesting, because you have hinted at the fact that, well, you've said that there's only 4 of you who still make it by hand in the UK. But can we talk about the sort of, I mean, I don't know if it was the heyday of passementerie, I don't know if maybe the Georgians, but certainly the Victorian era, that's something that you can talk about quite confidently, right? What was the industry like back in that time?
Oh, wow. So passementerie has always been made in London. Now, I only
know about this because I used to have a studio in Fenchurch Street, which has now been knocked down, this really amazing space. I did lots of research into the area and found that passementerie was made right where I had my studio. And I was the first passementerie maker there since 18 something.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that is so amazing, particularly City of London, finance, accountancy, whatever. So it's always been made in London, and it's been made sort of Derby, Nottingham kind of area. But now there's just 4 of us and we're fairly spread out. I think in 16 something or another, in the City of London, there were close to 60 trimmings makers just in the City of London.
Wow.
So that shows you how much of a demand there was. And they would be making trimmings for garments, for hats, for shoes, for interiors, all sorts of things. But it wasn't called passementerie then. It was the Huguenot weavers that bought the title.
Of course,
Over
the
with
French, yes.
It's the French.
I've always wondered why it's called passementerie. I thought, what?
Yeah. So it's a really old British craft. It's been made in the UK since at least the 1300s because we can look at portraits and you can see it.
Yes.
It was a status symbol. So that's why people were always painted with it. If you look at any portraits of Henry VIII or Elizabeth I, they will be sitting in this amazing interior bedecked by real gold trimmings. Or you'll see the big tassels of portraits of the royal family. They're always painted with a great big tassel hanging off their waistband.
Yeah.
Because it was a status symbol.
And in fact, don't uniforms have some elements of passementerie?
Ceremonial military uniforms, the amazing epaulettes or the braids cross. Yeah, they do.
Millinery, etc.
Correct. Car interiors, heritage car interiors, all sorts of things. It pops up everywhere. It flies under the radar because hardly anyone knows about it. But as soon as you see it once and someone points it out, you'll then, oh look, there's a bit more. Oh look, there's some more. You see it everywhere. So the term has only been used since the 1600s in the UK. Before it was called all sorts of weird things. It would have been a lace man that made it, or a lace woman.
Well, I guess because, as you say, there's so many different sort of like niche elements of it.
Correct.
Maybe it didn't have that sort of umbrella term.
Correct. It was called fancy work or fancy trimmings, which I love.
I love that. Fancy work, yeah.
But it's also a craft that is really subject to taste. And hugely, wildly popular in the Victorian era, where more was more. And if you had a lot of money, you showed it off by the possessions in your house. And, women with a lot of money were at home. They entertained at home. So the home became this amazing place to...
And growing middle class as well.
Correct. Yeah. But then things started to change, particularly around the First World War when women have always worked, haven't they? But, women working was more prominent and the role of women started to change, the role of home started to change, so the use of this started to decline. Lots of passementerie manufacturers apparently shut down in First World War. They transitioned to making different types of fabrics for the war effort. Modernism, obviously that changed things completely. It's just stripped everything
back.
I
think pretty much everything I feature on Artfully Crafted would not exist if it was up to the modernists.
I think they would have just struck it all off, get rid of all this rubbish, we just want the clean lines, which is fine, but put it all in the bin and start again.
I think slightly not what I'm about.
No, not me, thank you.
But you said something to me off camera about how it used to be divided up with men were at the loom.
Yes, they were at the loom, and I'll show you. I'll just grab the shuttle actually. It would have been a very male industry for weaving. Now, that shuttle is not mine. I inherited it from someone. It's huge. I mean, how on earth you were supposed to hold that in your hand comfortably?
Well, you're meant to hold it like one-handed. Okay, no.
You can see these are the ones that I use, that I also have made.
Oh my God.
But I can
the difference in size.
Yeah. So this would have been made for a special job because I assume the weaver was working with very, very thick cords or ropes maybe, so it had to be very deep. But I couldn't use it. But it would have been a man that was using that with much, much bigger hands. Because the thing that people don't realise about weaving, particularly passementerie, because it's so fine and beautiful, is it's so physical. If you've got to be weaving for 6-7 hours a day, you've got to have really good core muscles for one thing.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Okay.
But, generally because men are a bit bigger arm muscles, whatever, bigger hands, it's, always been a bit easier.
So actually a lot of the sort of like historic tools that you're seeing as sort of were made for men, basically.
Correct. They were, particularly in Victorian. You know, even this one, which you can see is a step down from that one, that is still really too big. It's like a little family. But this one's lovely because it's got the name of the Victorian trimmings maker on the side.
And that's another thing as well is, you know, you've already touched on, you know, you rely on wood turners. And then, you know, I think that is something that is going to pop up more as we go along is just how reliant you are on hosts of different crafts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this actually is just one of those hints of the fact that there used to be people who made a whole career of supplying that industry, whereas you've had to have this made presumably by someone who probably won't be making another one of those for a while, right?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, it was a special job. But you're absolutely right. You know, this was Maddox, who I think was late 1800s, who just made the trimmings equipment. So you can imagine the whole industry and the demand there would have been. I mean, there's nobody that makes trimmings equipment now, not their sole business. You have to, you know, contact a blacksmith who's doing loads of other things or whatever to get the stuff you need.
Yeah.
But you can still use these, no problem. It's just, you know, it's just the size of the hands.
And the same thing with Big Bertha. You said to me that, again off camera, you said that it's from the 70s and it was part of like a boom of interest in weaving as a hobby at the time, right?
Correct. And weaving rugs, very 1970s.
But the manufacturer doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, they closed down about 10 years ago or so. So I'm very lucky to have this loom. She is a very special loom. She's lovely. She's a delight to weave. And it sounds perhaps a bit silly, but she's been designed by someone who weaves all the time. So many modern looms that I've used are not terribly intuitive or ergonomic, which always makes me think that perhaps it's an engineer who's never really woven that much that's designed it, or someone else. Whereas this, so there's a bit at the front of the loom where I put my hands, it's called a beater, I have to hold the beater, but it's grooved and it slopes on either side, so I can hold it for hours. You know, it just sits in my hand beautifully, rather than having kind of, you know, edges, which would be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Half of the front comes off the loom when I'm setting the loom up, so I can get right in there, so I'm not having to hunch kind of down.
Right.
So I think every part of it was designed by someone with extensive weaving experience, and that's what makes she is her so special.
And you also have, I think we can introduce Timothy and Dorothy.
Probably sound really unhinged.
No, I love it.
Dorothy I did not name. That's the manufacturer named her Dorothy.
Yeah.
So they work in exactly the same way as Big Bertha. They're just much smaller and they sit on a table, and they're generally the ones I use for teaching.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so then going back to that sort of Victorian era industry of passementerie. So the men were at the loom, but then there were jobs that were specifically more for women, right?
Yes, for women. So that would have been the tassel making, fancy work, also called off-loom work. Definitely would have been children at one point with small dexterous fingers for doing all the fiddly work.
Yeah, and good sight. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, how, you know, makers in the past would make some of these things without proper lighting or magnification, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But rosettes as well, so that would have all been women, and the two would not have crossed.
Right.
Now there's only 4 of us that are making by hand. We do everything. We're all women, and we do it all.
Yeah. Can we talk about the anatomy of this a little bit and how it's made?
Yes, we can.
Please.
So these are quite heritage items. You normally see these on the edges of a bolster cushion, or you occasionally get them up on curtains, 4-poster beds, that kind of thing, or on a very smart sofa you'd get it on the edge with some kind of tassel.
Yes.
But they also make the most amazing brooches.
Yeah.
So this is the rosette, this crowning kind of jewel at the top, and then this
is fabulous.
It's also, sometimes it's called a jasmine.
Yeah.
The frustrating thing about passementerie is the language is not standardised. So I'll call it one thing, you go and speak to someone else, and they'll say, oh, no, it's not that, we call it this. Go to someone else and say, no, that's nonsense, we call it this.
So if you're emailing each other, total nightmare.
Pictures. This is what I would like, please, yeah. But also from a research point of view, historical research, it makes it really hard. So this one's a little bit different. I actually bought this for $1 when I was living in Canada. Yeah, I know. It's all silk, it's all made by hand. Anything you see produced like this today, or tassels, lots of the weaving is all done by hand. Even if you just pop to good old John Lewis, or wherever you go to look at an on-the-shelf trim, it's all handmade because machines cannot do it.
Okay.
But in something like this rosette, so if I turn it over,
Oh yeah.
in there, so you've got a button, wooden button, so I have those made by the same man that makes my shuttles. Then this lovely piece is called a collar, rosette collar. So what it is it's basically you're making a chain. It's all threaded through sort of itself. It's not quite macrame, it's heading in that direction in terms of technique. You literally just make it in your hand. So you make it so it's about that long, 8 loops, you form it around just in your hand, and then you connect the last one, which is the one that's unravelling. Like that. Now that is made from Gimp, and that's a very special passementerie material. I have to have it specially made, and we use that because it holds its shape.
And so again, that's another thing that you have to commission, and where again the number of people or companies you can supply that is dwindling, or
there's one company left in the UK that can make it. I know how to make it, and I've been trained how to make it. The reason I don't make it at the moment is I don't have the space, because you have to make it in one length. So I'd need.
How do you make it?
Well, so the way I learned how to make it was in a 20-metre long workshop.
Yeah.
And in the middle you've got a core yarn. So it's a cotton. It's often called the gut, but I hate that description. And it's kind of hovering. So it's stretched from point to point in 20 metres in the workshop, spun up really tightly on a motor. Then you pop on a belt with spikes. And then on the spikes you have...
I'm sort of thinking, you know, there's like medieval torture museums.
It looks very similar, like something they'd use at the Tower of London to like poke you to death. That's what it is. That's what it is. To the uninitiated, if you didn't know what all this stuff was, you just think, oh my God, I'm not going anywhere near that. So on there is silk. You can see how fine that is.
Yeah.
Now, there's one thread on each, and I would have 6 bobbins like that.
Okay.
Now, bobbins you can't buy, so you have to have those made if you need any more of them.
Okay.
And then you have a special bit of equipment that gets the silk off a big cone on here. Pop them on your belt. Comes up into your hand. So this is while the core is spinning. You take your bunch, 6 or 7 threads, throw it onto the core while it's spinning, and then you have it through here. So it's running through, so it gives you terrible burn, carpet burn. And you walk like a crab. You from one
walk
end
like a crab.
of the going sideways. You have to go that way. So, and you have to focus. You're focusing on a very small space. You're focusing on this cotton core. It's tiny, a couple of mils, spinning. Whilst you're watching it, you're holding this. You're keeping the tension, and if you like slip, your finger slips, changes the tension. It's reflected in the Gimp. So you have to go from one end of the workshop all the way to the other, perfectly wrapping it. If you trip, if you stumble, it's reflected in the cord.
Right.
So
no pressure, basically.
So no pressure. So that's how it's made by hand. It can be made by machine as well.
Okay.
But handmade Gimp is beautiful. It's lovely.
Yeah.
So the man that I learned how to make it from is called Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce worked for a man called Brian Turner, who was the Royal Warrant holder for Passementerie, but shut his business 2 years ago and retired at the age of 71. Bruce had been Brian's cord spinner since he was 16, and when I met Bruce, he was 46.
Okay.
He could make Gimp in literally what looked like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He would literally run from one end of the workshop to the other, and there would be this perfect material, whereas I was labouring like diligently.
Oh my God.
So I did 5 days in a freezing cold workshop from 9 till 5 every day. And on Friday afternoon, the last day, I was deemed to be acceptable. But because they were quite old school, he had amazing Victorian machinery for making cords and, theatre ropes that you would see, those big, I think they've got an official name, but theatre ropes, or for petitions. And to do that, you have to use heavy duty equipment, and theirs was Victorian. But because I'm a lady, I was deemed that I was not strong enough I wasn't even allowed to have go to even attempt it. I mean, I probably couldn't have done it because it was real heavy duty stuff. So the men would take over at a certain point and finish it.
So when Brian retired, Bruce also stopped?
Yeah, Bruce stopped.
Oh,
All that knowledge gone. And because...
So who does this in the UK now?
It's a company called Heritage Trimmings based up in Derby. As far as I know, they're the only people that can make it in the UK.
Wow. And they do it by hand or by machine?
I believe they can do both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most passementerie companies, the bigger companies, their mill makes it all in-house. So they're able to make it to any size, any dimension, any thickness, and they'll do hand, but most likely machine. Because they're producing 400 or 500
So
meters.
if you are wanting to buy Gimp, you would either buy it, for yourself so that you can then make it, and you would either have to buy from Heritage Trimmings or you would have to buy from overseas or make it yourself.
Well, so you couldn't buy it from overseas because there's no one that actually sells it. There's no... Heritage Trims will make it. They make it for their own jobs.
Yeah.
Whether they sell it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then that's why I've commissioned, because I teach and people constantly say to me, where can I buy Gimp? Where can I buy Gimp? And so I've had a whole range commissioned, which will eventually be on my website, to buy it because there's a huge demand for it. With Gimp, so this is a silk Gimp, it can be made from any type of material. So you can do wool, viscose, linen, whatever. Now, when I bend that, see, it holds its shape, and I can move it and it bounces back. If I used a material that behaves really well on the loom, because everything on the loom's under tension and I'm working with everything flat, so everything stays put. If I then wove it with something too loose, popped it up on something's curtains, gravity has an effect, pulls everything down. Well, the last thing you want is a saggy loop on your curtains. It'd be a disaster. So that's why we use Gimp, because it holds its shape.
Well, that's the thing, is also, it's not just gravity, right? It's like the whole point of all these soft furnishings, the curtains, the cushions, the sofa, etc. These are all things that you're gonna open your curtains, you're gonna fluff your cushions, you're gonna sit on your sofa. It needs to really hold itself, and not just once, not just twice, but just through repeated use, right?
It does. And some things are capable of being pulled every day, or the curtains, whatever, on cushion being leant against, and some things aren't. So if somebody wanted loads of beautiful fine silk, a bit like this, and it was going on sofas in, say, in a hotel that was going to be sat on all the time, it would be an absolute disaster, because it would just abrade and rub away. So it's very much sort of materials led in terms of context. Also light. Yeah. So if a client, lived in a Tudor house, for example, typically looked darker, not much natural light, the windows are so small, and they wanted particular colour that in this light looks very bright and airy. As soon as you put it in their room, dining room, whatever, it looks really dark and really dingy. So that's a big consideration. Something like wool absorbs light, silk or mercerised cotton reflects it. So that's a big consideration as well. But a technique I love, going back to your original question, about other techniques and things that have got to be made, so cords. So similar to Gimp. So in this piece, this was actually something I designed for the Samuel & Sons collection, but this is the hand-woven version, my sort of prototype. So all these bits hanging down, this has all been made from hand-spun cord. So I have this amazing spinner. Same technique as rope making, it's just obviously on a smaller scale, much smaller scale. But it allows me to take any yarn, any material, so I can transform that just through spinning and plying into cords that are then suitable for weaving. Because commercially available cords are horrible. They are so disappointing. They're cheap, nasty, synthetic, horrid. So I can be incredibly custom, because so much of my work is about colour matching. So typically an interior design client will send me a piece of fabric for the curtains or the ottoman, whatever the trim's going on, and it will be colour matched to that particular fabric. We're trying to find cords in the right colour readily available, you just can't.
Right.
So it allows me to take any yarn, and it's just like being a painter. I might blend to get one orange. I might take 4 or 5 shades of orange, just like you would with paint, and blend it together to give a really beautiful effect, beautiful colour.
That's wonderful. And it's interesting hearing you talk about prototyping as well.
Yeah.
Because going back to that idea of designing for passementerie, a lot of the time, of course, you've got the sort of big companies that probably have in-house designers.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about interior designers,
Yeah.
I'm thinking one collaboration that really, or sort of working partnership that springs to mind for me is François-Joseph Graf and with Declare. They work quite closely together, right? And they, over the course of many projects, have developed a really close working relationship where he understands what they can and can't do. They probably, I imagine, would also be part of the design somewhat and the conversation. And, over time you see he's almost like pushing that sort of like the innovation, side of things.
Correct. And it's a language in its own right. And you've got to be able to kind of, I guess, understand how it's made, to then understand how it can be made and how it can be tailored to your project or what you want. Typically, it's always on a smaller scale. But I did this commission last year. This is a really wide trim. I think it's 8 centimetres for curtains. But, going back to what we were saying about making it contemporary, that looks so much more contemporary. And it's to do with the scale. Now that was colour matched to the room. The interior designer sent me all the fabrics and the leathers for every single item in the room because she wanted it all pulled together.
But that's what you need.
Correct.
You can't work in isolation, especially not for something like passementerie, because realistically, passementerie at its best ties the room together.
It does.
You could have a huge palette of colours, and with the right passementerie, it will just come to life.
It harmonises everything. And it's often a detail that you don't necessarily consciously notice, although of course I do, but you don't consciously notice on someone's curtains. If you saw the curtains without it, you would notice a really big difference. A bit like spot the difference. You would be able to see it.
It'd be slightly jarring. It
wouldn't look as resolved. It wouldn't look as elevated, as personalised, as resolved as a room scheme. And it's the same that I do. The same principle that I do when I make pieces for bespoke and couture fashion. I see the jacket because the jacket's or the coat, whatever it is, the dress is made, and then the trim is the last thing that goes on. And then you compare the two things together, before and after. And the after is just the garment's beautiful to begin with, but the trim transforms it.
Yeah, and
it's
it finishes it.
It's like us wearing jewellery or wearing a beautiful scarf. It finishes it, elevates and finishes it.
Yeah. But so what is really interesting to me is that as a designer, the fact that you understand the passementerie, but you're able to do your own prototypes because you actually are a maker as well.
Exactly.
I think that's a real advantage, isn't it?
Yes, it absolutely is. And that's what I think makes my work so special, is because I'm trained as a weaver. So I've got 2 degrees in woven textile design. So if I wanted to go and design a great big furnishing fabric, then I've got the skills and knowledge to be able to do it. But I've got a really excellent knowledge of weaving, full stop, not just passementerie. Because the actual, the techniques involved in the woven side of things are very straightforward compared to weaving fashion fabrics or interiors fabrics or whatever it is. So I've got this amazing knowledge that I can pull from to bring into passementerie in a different way.
Yeah.
And everything I do all starts off as small prototypes and samples, and then it's worked up into something bigger or a full length or whatever it is from there.
I feel like we're leading up to your collaboration with Samuel & Sons, because that was really the perfect way to kind of illustrate your contemporary approach to passementerie.
Yes. Would you like to see the book?
Yes, please.
So this amazing book is the Kaleidoscope collection for Samuel & Sons.
Yeah.
Absolute dream commission, dream collaboration. First time they have ever worked with an external passementerie.
Oh, really? I didn't realise. Yes. That's really cool.
So Samuel and Sons are a company headquartered in New York, and they are the market leader for luxury passementerie.
Okay.
The work is exceptional.
Yeah.
And they got in touch with me actually, it'll be 2 years ago this month.
Oh, really? That's how long it took to do the whole
That's how
lead
long.
up to
Yeah,
it, and
did.
wow.
Yeah. And they just wrote to me, and we had a chat, and they said we'd love you.
Oh, they reached out to
Yeah.
you.
And how cool is that?
Wait, did they reach out? Was it like DM or an email or something? Like, what was that like when you
think
received it? Did you believe it?
Well, it was a pinch me moment, because I am a huge Samuel and Sons fangirl. They have an extraordinary design. It's all designed by one woman called Marissa,
Okay.
who's the vice president of design.
Okay.
Extraordinary, phenomenal designer and talent, which
Yeah.
is lovely as well. And I think she direct messaged me on Instagram and then said, "Oh, can you email me?" She might have said that, I can't remember. It was so long ago. So then we had...
You must have like fallen off your chair.
Yeah, I did. I literally fell off my chair, because I've been the biggest fan. I used to go to the showroom all the time when I was a student and get samples. Oh my God, they've given me a sample. This is amazing. So it sounds so silly now, doesn't it? But it was dream come true. And actually, when I was learning, I don't know whether I told Marissa this, but when I was learning how to do it, the one way I would learn is I would copy designs just for me as a way of learning. Yeah, so we then had a Teams call, and she asked me if I'd be interested to design a collection
And
for
the
her.
answer was
Yes,
yeah.
it was a resounding
Hell
yes.
yeah.
Like, absolutely. So
These colours.
Yeah.
I love that you've got the really, really like poppy, bright,
This
like
is fiesta.
super. Yeah. This is so exciting.
So this is where we started. So Marissa and I had so many calls. So I showed her things that I'd already got tucked away in boxes, explorations and samples and things. And then together we really built this. Naturally, I'm drawn to real intense colour combinations and bright colour combinations. And that's just what I like, intuitively. Once we'd refined the kind of core designs, we then worked together to develop very distinct colour palettes. Now, because they are a North American company, they obviously have a huge presence in North America.
Yeah.
And they typically, in the US, have colours they like more than others. Mm-hmm. Then in the UK, certain colours
this
do
feels
better.
very,
Well, this is very kind of US colours.
Oh, these ones, interesting.
Mid-tone blues and ivories. Southern states of the US love a lavender, a lilac and a blush.
It's interesting they're seeing it almost by region.
Yeah. And it's almost like the states are individual countries in a way, with individual...
And some
'cause
culturally,
it's so huge.
it feels,
Exactly. Whereas in the UK, certainly in my commission work, I've never noticed the difference between colours that London like or Scotland likes. It doesn't, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, although with tartans and things.
Oh, well, so that's true, but there isn't that regional
Not in
disparity.
passementerie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in France, apparently they love a more novelty design.
Right,
bright
so
colours.
this sort of,
A bit more like this, and then also the Fiesta colourway. And then this is what's in the window of the Samuel and Sons showroom in Paris.
Right.
So this is in all the showroom windows. I think they've got 6 around the world.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's fascinating to see what's been picked, because it's been designed for what colours do well in particular regions. I've had feedback, and I know that it's just been phenomenal interest in it.
Whereas this is very original. You're unlikely, if someone loves bright colours, there's not going to be, this is going to be really.
In terms of colour, in terms of the intensity of colour, this is incredibly unusual to see in passementerie, full stop. But for me, when I said earlier, colour is my primary material, I mean, I think that's really evident here, really, really evident. But you can see how that beautiful trim here, this is a contemporary version of a tassel. Everybody loves a tassel. I love a tassel, but I wanted to do something different. Heavily influenced by the work of Sheila Hicks, textile artist, where she makes these amazing bound and wrapped installations. And I saw this phenomenal exhibition in Yorkshire that really inspired this application. But see how beautiful that is, just on the orange velvet footstool, just as a stunning piece of jewellery. And lots of people say to me, "Oh, this is so Maximus and over the top," and I always say, "But it doesn't have to be used like that. It's about the application."
Yeah.
Something like this. A client one of Samuel & Sons clients has just used it on cream Roman blinds, and it looks phenomenal, absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Same here, it looks quite classic.
Yeah.
If you put that on a completely different fabric in a different application,
it
could look wild, maximalist, and everything in between. You know, I would work with Marissa, and she said, okay, we'd like something in a coral and an aqua. So I'd go and recolour, but all the recolouring was done by hand. So all of this initially was woven by hand, prototypes. Some of the other colourways also were, but the rest was drawn and then recoloured once the initial design was done. Prototypes are made on Big Bertha, but I am not making any of this. This is all handled by Samuel & Sons Mills.
Do you feel like you enjoy that quite a lot, actually, being sort of involved at that creative prototyping stage, but not necessarily the sort of long-term production?
Yes. Where my skill lies is in the design.
Yeah.
And designing really beautiful, unusual passementerie.
Yeah.
Anyone can learn how to weave.
Yeah.
You know, to a good enough standard. Yes, passementerie takes an incredible amount of skill and patience. You need the patience of a saint to be able to weave it. But it's things like, so this beautiful piece here.
Yeah.
I would never entertain weaving that myself by hand because it is so complicated, so multi-layered. There are so many steps to how the cords have to be made in a particular way, etc., etc., before you can weave. And if I was hand weaving it, it would cost so much money that I don't think there would be a client to be able to, you know,
to pay your time, basically.
But because Samuel & Sons work in a different way, economies of scale, etc., etc., it makes it a lot more accessible and achievable.
And I love that you have the version without the fringes as well.
Yeah. I know, isn't that beautiful?
It's really great, yeah. And I'm looking at all of these pompons, like on edges of cushions. Like, can you just imagine, like, sitting, you got your cushion and you're sort of, like, playing with the pompons?
I know. It looks fabulous on curtains as well. It looks absolutely amazing. Or on lampshades.
And actually very playful, like the opposite of old and stuffy looking, you know? Which I think that's, you look at this is playful. This is not old-fashioned. I really want people to see passementerie as the exciting crafts and decorative arts that it is. Yeah, because of course you've made artworks out of it as well.
I have, and I have lots of private students come to me because they're really interested in integrating the techniques into sculptures or ceramics. I had this amazing lady years ago. We made loads of small samples of passementerie braids that she then cast them in some, I don't know anything about casting, cast them, and she made these amazing ceramic vessels with these like cast passementerie winding all the way around.
Amazing.
You know, so it's the application of what you can do is incredible. And quite often, I mean, there's a piece over on the wall there behind the camera. I will start off by making them. So if I'm experimenting, I like to kind of tinker around with these multi-warps, traditional passementerie skills, but made much bigger. And quite often that work then informs the passementerie work. So I had a piece at Collect, which I just used as a vehicle to test out loads of things and just as a trial for me to see whether this thing I had in my head worked. And it did. But now I'm thinking, that thing I've got in the middle will look absolutely amazing, shrunk right down to 2.5 inches on someone's curtains. I'm like, I need to get that woven so I can then show clients.
I'm thinking, just before we sort of leave the Samuel & Sons collaboration, although we might return to it because I'm sure there's a lot more to unpack from it. One of the things I do want to do with this channel is also talk about the business side of things and it can be the ups and downs and the sort of reality of it. And I've met a lot of craftspeople now, and I've heard some horror stories about collaborations where the person who is, designing is not being treated particularly well or remunerated fairly. What was your experience like with Samuel & Sons in that regard?
The dream.
Yeah.
They are fantastic. They're an absolutely fabulous company, and they have just been an absolute joy to work with, and they continue to be a joy to work with. But I think, that's for many reasons, but they understand, because passementerie is what they do, and that's what they excel at. They understand it. And because they're all creative people, they understand the process, everything that goes into it, it's all handmade and blah blah blah. So it's just been the most amazing experience working with them. I never wanted this collection to end. I wanted to just keep going. Kaleidoscope 2, 3, 4, just keep going with the iterations. But you know, it's interesting because I probably designed 2/3 again of this.
Yeah.
That was then we really refined and kind of edited together. But they've been wonderful.
And you told me off camera that you have had other sort of companies approach you, but that you've not necessarily been able to take up those opportunities because they weren't great opportunities where, you know, potentially people were asking you to basically work for free, right?
Work for free. And then we're really outraged when I said, no, I don't work for free. But who's going to pay for my food?
For your
who's going to pay for my rent?
For the
my
materials,
water bill?
your studio.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, so it was a project that probably would have taken me full time 3 months, 3 to 4 months, and I wouldn't, to really give it my all, because with anything I do, I give it 100%. I always give it my all because that's what makes that's what makes it so good. You get a good result. So it would have been about 3 to 4 months of real kind of hard work.
Yeah.
And they refused to give me any money until it was completed.
Wow.
Which for me is a huge red flag, because that tells you all you need to know about a company.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't want this channel to be about like naming and shaming in any kind of way.
Of course not. No.
But if there are companies that deserve to be celebrated, I will do that. You know.
And I think, you know, we all have horror stories. You speak to any craftsperson, or lots of my friends are textile makers, and we've all got stories similar.
Yeah.
But then it's like you say, you don't hear about the really exceptional companies, and there are so many of them, but just unfortunately there are companies who do want to take advantage of artists and designers under this kind of, you know, well, you get exposure, or we'll give you free. I had friends, you know, someone that wanted them to design fashion fabrics for them, real high end, and they said, well, we'll give you some free clothes. Okay, I can look fabulous while I'm not paying my rent. It's, you know, it's interesting, and I've
like
got,
so many words are coming to mind.
And I've got friends, you know, that work in all sorts of different areas outside of art and whatever, and you don't hear about stories like this from anyone else.
Difficult because I think we all work in this industry because we love the work that we do and we're incredibly passionate about it.
Right.
And I fear that there are some companies that think that because we enjoy the work, we don't need to be paid for it.
Correct. They take
and
advantage.
It's like, well, just because you love what you do doesn't mean that you don't need to be remunerated for your work. It's just...
So this is the thing. And I think people forget that we're actually running a business.
Yeah.
You know, this is also my life, because that's just how it is. It becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It takes over everything. You should ask my husband.
Yeah. Well, and I was telling you about this. Like, I'm working every day. I'm working weekends. You know, again, as you say, ask my husband.
Yeah. But that's the reality of it, and we're quite happy to do it because we love what we do. And maybe not always happy to do it, but you know, we love what we do, and we're also really lucky to be able to do it. But we've worked really hard to be able to get to where we are. But I don't think other people necessarily appreciate that.
Yeah.
Or they think, well, if we just give you some exposure on social media, it's a bit like applying for things. Not naming any names, but you know, if it's art awards or it's art programs, whatever, there seems to be a proliferation of, you know, open calls, blah blah blah, that literally friends spend days writing these things. And I know that's just how it is, because you've got to apply for things to kind of get them, but you just think, well, that's all unpaid.
Yeah.
To get an exhibition, which you then have to pay to ship your own work to.
Yeah.
Which to me doesn't seem right.
No.
You know, if you've just been given an exhibition opportunity in Japan, all of a sudden you've got to ship your work to Japan, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of pounds for something that's big.
Yeah.
And the gallery say, well, we're not going to insure your work. And it's like, hang on a minute, this should be a two-way conversation. You want my work because, well, this has never happened to me, but speaking on behalf of other people, you want my work because it's going to bring people to you. Yeah. And this is friends who have been, you know, who are decades on from me, still have, you know, who've got a name for themselves in textiles, but still having this problem.
Yeah.
So
It's really tricky.
It's really tricky.
And of course, you know, I'm sure there's been opportunities where you thought, oh, well, it would be good exposure.
Yeah.
And I think when you're starting out, particularly,
Correct.
which is really tricky because actually when you're starting out, it's probably when you need the cash the most because you're trying to establish yourself, you're
Yes.
trying to buy the equipment
Yeah.
and the materials, etc. Like you probably don't have those things already.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do that, but then you're also more likely to not be in a position of, you know, being able to negotiate and advocate well for yourself because you don't have a name yet. So
Exactly. Or you don't know how to do it because no one's ever taught you about it. You know, it's
Yeah.
things that you learn as you go, isn't it? It's a huge learning curve, and I hope I don't sound like I get everything right because I don't. I definitely don't, and it's definitely not all plain sailing. But I just think it's an interesting point to kind of highlight, and the more discussions around this business side of things, I think the better.
Yeah.
The better equipped that everyone's going to be to deal with it.
Yeah, totally. And speaking about, you know, the hard work that goes into things,
Yeah.
I feel like we can maybe, you know, we have talked about your wonderful work. You've hinted at your education and
Yeah.
the fact that you're trained as a textile designer. Maybe we can sort of go back to the beginning. How
Yeah,
did you
of
get into all
course.
of this?
Well, I've always made things, and actually if you ask my dad, he said I'd always sit next to him on the sofa with a big fat crayon. I was about 3 years old and I'd just be quite happy. I'd just sit there and scribble and scribble and scribble. Now, I come from a family of people with dyslexia. Now,
Okay.
it's mainly my dad and my brother. But conversely, they're very creative.
Mm-hmm.
So in very, very different ways. So I think I've got that streak. So my dad is very creative, just in a very, very different way to me. He was a photographer when he was working.
Mm-hmm.
But he was always around, and he had a very different life from sort of other dads. So that kind of creative life that I have now was very similar way of working to how he would work.
Fine.
In some way. So I was kind of used to it. I went to a very academic school who always, I think I was a bit of an odd one out, and I don't think they quite knew how to deal with me because I can be very academic, but I always wanted to do something creative. I was always making things at home. I was doing stuff with mum or textiles club or whatever it was. So it was always going to be the direction that I went, you know, towards. But I remember I had careers advice. In sixth form, and you know, so they're going through all your exam grades and what you expect to get in your A levels and all this stuff.
I mean,
and
no career advisor in the school is going to know to tell you, oh, you should consider passementerie.
No, of course they're not. Of course they're not. And no, to give them the dues, I think they do a really fantastic job. I just think when it comes to art or craft or design, you know, they cannot possibly cover it all. They can't. But this woman was so adamant that I went off and researched speech therapy.
What?
Having never uttered a word about speech therapy. I went in there with a plan. I said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to apply for. I'm going to do my foundation at St Martin's. Application's in, waiting to hear. Blah, blah. She's like, no, I think we should sit. So we literally sat with her for half an hour while she Googled speech therapy classes. And I thought, this is the most bizarre experience. So I was very polite. I'm like, thank you very much. You know, whatever.
I guess clearly she'd seen your profile, had an idea for you and was trying to ram it down your
The other
throat.
thing was the archaeologist. Anyone less likely to go and stand 6 foot down in the ground than me, I would like to meet in the rain and the wind.
Probably me, actually.
I mean, that is not me.
I'm less likely.
I think that's why I'm a weaver rather than a printer, because I don't like mess.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just weird. And you know, that still continues today. Or there's this misconception, you can't make any money from it, you're never going to be successful, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, somebody has to. And I remember that's what I did at the time. And it was exactly the same for my dad going back to the 1960s. He's had exactly the same experience. And you think, well, that huge decades and decades in between, and that is the same message that is being conveyed. So there's still a commonly held view that you can't make any money from craft or art or design. So why even bother?
Yeah.
Well, if we had that mindset about everything in life, nothing would ever get done. You know, it's that you could apply that to going to space, couldn't you? Look how many people have been to space and all the advances have been made. Well, you look at the moon, well, you're never going to be able to go there, so why bother? So it's, you know, it's such a silly mindset. I'm someone, I think, when I can just do that. Let's just give it a go. If it doesn't work out, then, you know, whatever, do something else.
Fine.
So, and that's how I kind of got into passementerie.
So you had applied, when you went to see that careers advisor,
Yes.
you had applied to Central St Martin's for foundation.
Yes. So I thought I was going to be a fashion designer because
Interesting.
that's what I had loved all the way through.
Yeah.
And the foundation, you got to do a bit of jewellery, product design, ceramics, whatever. Did fashion, hated it. Absolutely hated it from the end of the first day. And I just went, yeah. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do this. This is awful. So then I think the textiles must have come immediately afterward. I fell in love with it, and then that was it. And then decided to apply for textile design, BA, and then went off and did that. You do a bit of everything. Weave, knit and print. And then I specialised in weave. Then I worked for 2 years, did all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And then I went back to the Royal College, which then was 2-year programme to do a Masters in Textiles.
Right.
But I was working with passementerie before that, because it was during my BA that I kind of came across it.
Okay.
And then that's when I started to teach myself how to do it.
So, okay, so you're self-taught for passementerie.
Not self-taught in weaving, but I applied my knowledge of weaving to passementerie weaving and figured out how to do it.
So how did you come across it?
It was actually a university project called Ribbons and Trimmings. I think it was 10 days or 2 weeks, and I think I made trims for fashion, weird and wonderful. But what entranced me was a couple of things. Working on a small scale with passementerie, then I did not know it was called passementerie, I just thought it was ribbons. I could be so much more creative than I could be designing a menswear fabric for suiting.
Yes.
Because it's all about the materials and it's all about the colour. And it's all about, I guess, creating beauty. I mean, there is a function to passementerie, but it's really about the beauty and the aesthetics of it. And I thought, this is really interesting. But then other university projects came up and you go off and do lots of different things. Third year, you write your own project. And I was going through the portfolio with a tutor and she said, I think you should come back to ribbons. She was a tutor called Ruth. And I said, okay, you know, as you do, and off you go kind of thing. And that was it. Since that day, I have never made a full width piece of fabric or designed a full width piece of fabric ever again.
Wow.
And I started to look at antique weaving plates or Victorian drawings, which rather unhelpfully are in black and white. So if you're trying to follow lines, it can get really difficult.
Yeah.
It's quite, I guess, it's quite logical actually, and it's quite mathematical. So I would sit with colour markers and I would mark what cord's going where, and then I would have a go at weaving it, or I'd go off to Samuel and Sons and get samples.
I was going to say that's where the Samuels and Sons, sort of getting the samples, unpacking them, seeing what they're...
I'd literally pick them apart sometimes to see what was going where, to be able to understand how it was put together. So I taught myself. But then the offline work, I didn't make this one, this is a lovely heritage example, but rosettes, and then also coming back to the tassels, I couldn't teach myself.
No?
There's very few resources about passementerie, full stop. And I'm not someone that particularly excels at learning from written instructions, which is weird because I've written a book. But for me, I'd much rather be shown how to do something than battle with a book. So I was given a Queen Elizabeth scholarship, the first one for passementerie.
Wow.
The correct name is, it's a bit of a mouthful, Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust, Adam Architecture Scholarship.
Oh, Adam Architecture.
They have paid for my scholarship and have been amazing advocates.
Amazing.
Lovely Robbie Kerr was apparently the man that decided. Yeah, so it was really, really, really lovely. And I've met with them loads of times. They're just absolutely fantastic supporters. Yeah. So that's how I was able to go off and train one-to-one with Brian Turner, who's now retired, Claire Hedges, who's in Norfolk, exceptional maker. And then I was also able to go to France for a study visit. I went to De Klerk and did various
You went to De Klerk? Oh, amazing.
So I didn't train with them, but they were kind enough to kind of show me around this amazing... So it's the showroom, but it's where the archive is housed. Oh, so I get to spend loads of time looking and just experiencing everything.
So up until that point you were self-taught, and then the Quest scholarship really enabled you to kind of push that to the next level and get some one-on-one, etc.
Absolutely. Because what was happening, I mean, I've never been commissioned yet to make a tassel quite as elaborate as that, but I was getting commissions, heritage commissions as well, and I was having to turn them down, which was so frustrating because it's things I really wanted to do. So literally the day my scholarship then finished, was all wrapped up, I then got an email from someone saying, oh, here's a tassel we want recreated. I think the dog had chewed it or something. It's half chewed, so they were able to send me the bits they had left, and I copied it exactly. And that has happened numerous times since I completed my Quest scholarship, which is just because it came at the perfect time.
All of that, you know, whether it's a collaboration with Samuel and Sons, the Quest scholarship, you know, Adam Architecture, you know, even actually with my own practice, I've been on a summer school which was started by Create Streets Foundation in partnership with Adam Architecture.
Oh, yes, okay.
You know, all of these organisations are so instrumental in creating those learning opportunities and those opportunities for our skills to be stretched and nurtured. And it's an incredibly difficult world to thrive in if you don't have those organisations.
I think it would be impossible.
Yeah.
Absolutely impossible if you didn't have the supporters, the advocates, the patrons, etc.
Talking about patrons, what is the difference? We've touched on the differences in tastes between the US and the UK market. What is the difference in terms of interior designers that you see in between the two?
So from my experience, huge. And my experience of working with a lot of US interior designers is trim will just, I actually hate that word trim, passementerie will always be included in a scheme.
I see.
It's not optional, it will be included.
Okay.
Whereas in the UK, from my experience, it's quite different. It's a relatively small but very dedicated, very core group of interior designers who want trim all the time. I think it's also, you know, because those interior designers are working for their clients.
Yeah.
So their clients have got to be on board with what the interior designer's vision is, and they're the ones that are ultimately okaying the budget. And I think in the US it's just different. They just have a different understanding of it. They of course had this really big fibre arts movement, and they still do have, and they've got galleries that just specialise in textile art, and they have the collectors for it. You know, you went to collect as well. I mean, there were so few and far between textiles.
Yeah.
They were kind of popping up, and I was thinking, well, why isn't this person here or that person? And like, this person should be here. And it just wasn't present. And that's, you know, that I think that's really difficult and it's really challenging. Apparently textiles are having a moment in textile art, and you know, everything else, well, they've always been there. They've been there, you know, for centuries, and you know, whatever. But I think textiles, in comparison to other forms of craft, are not thought of as highly, and that's very complicated, very multifaceted. I think why that's the case. I think it's partly because we wear textiles, we sit on textiles, we don't really think about them. We all sit on the tube seat or the bus seat or whatever, but someone's designed that. Tube seats designs have a really interesting history, and artistry behind it. I'm very passionate about weaving as a whole. But there's, you know, it's very multi-layered, but I think because it's domestic, or everybody's got grandmother who made something, or mum made something, or sister, or whoever, very female focused, it was always made at home. So I think it devalues, you know, the craft as a whole.
So what do you think, when you think about the future of your crafts, and I don't know, maybe reflecting on some of the opportunities that you would have wanted to see as you were coming up through the crafts, what's your kind of view on what's needed? And
That's quite a big question, isn't it? So I took part in a school's kind of talk programme that Quest run with another organisation, education organisation, and they specialise in getting craftspeople into schools, either physically or online. There were 3 of us. There was me, I can't remember, there was a thatcher, she's one of the only female thatchers, and there was a conservation carpenter.
Yeah.
So we all talked to the children. We had over 300 teenagers came.
Yeah.
And it's completely free for the schools. They just kind of zoom in. But it's that access. I mean, at my school, we didn't have anything like that. We had people that would come in from universities, or we had past graduates that would come in, accountants and lawyers, and which is great if that's what you want to do. It's great. Yeah. But there was always this big gap, particularly at the moment. You know, we've all heard that art, design, craft, DT is being cut back. I'm sure it'll be cut back even further. Just cut. We don't need it. Waste of time. We can't make any money. Blah blah blah. Whatever. And I think you know, government or people actually planning education just think it's a waste of time. Like, why are you just going to sit there with a bit of pen and pencil? Or it's the old thing when you go to an art gallery and someone says, "Well, a 5-year-old could have done that. I could have done that." I'm like,
but you didn't.
But you didn't, and you can't. It's a bit like I think it was it Picasso? I think it was Picasso. There's that story where he drew something on a napkin. I'm probably going to get this completely wrong, but the sentiment is kind of right. It literally took him 2 seconds to draw something on the napkin, and he was like, "That would be $50,000 or euros, whatever amount," he said. And the person was like, "That's absolutely outrageous, blah blah blah." But I think the point he was trying to make, it comes back to value. Because people don't realise, and then why would they realise how much work actually goes into making that thing? Yeah. So that hourly rate that we all charge is not just based on the amount of time it takes us to do X, Y, Z. It's the fact we've trained for 6, 7, 8.
You've trained, and then when you're looking at your tassel, you've also had to pay the wood turner who made the different. You've had to pay the threads, etc. You're paying for the studio.
Exactly.
And then you've got to remunerate yourself.
Exactly. You've got all of the business expenses. And, you know, yes, maybe the hourly rate is a bit more than someone who's just 2 years out of college, but you're paying for the fact I can get it done in a third of the time that somebody else can get it done. So in the long run, it doesn't cost as much money. But I think it's just really interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, if a plumber, you know, came to fix a pipe or something, £50 an hour, and you don't bat an eyelid.
No. And I think it's also the thing, you know, going back to that Picasso example, I've seen some fabulous exhibitions where it goes right back to like his childhood and his early drawings, etc. Yeah. And it's, you know, the idea of training, you know, when someone is paying you, they see the tip of the iceberg of how much work you've had to put into it to master your craft. Exactly. But when you see like those early works by Picasso and the years and years and years it took him to get to the point where he was like, right, now I experiment, now I do something innovative.
And make it your own.
Yeah, you can't come out with the Samuel & Sons Kaleidoscope collection as the first thing you ever do. Like, it doesn't work that way. You need that build-up, and you need to, as you say, unpick the Samuel & Sons samples to see how they're constructed, to try and reproduce them. And you need to learn to be a weaver, and you need to accumulate all the kit, etc. It's, you know, so it's really... you might see one thing, but no, you yourself would not be able to do that, because actually the person who did make it took them years and years and years to get to that level.
Correct. And it's a real hard grind sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many failures and there's so many things that go wrong.
And I did want to touch on that because, of course, you know, it's like you've been to Central St Martin's, you did your Masters at the Royal College of Art, you had a Quest Scholarship. Yeah. And I think some people might hear that sort of like introductory, you know, this is like kind of your bio line, and it sounds so impressive. And it's like, well, yeah, but, you know, that's, how was it, like 12 years kind of?
When I graduated from my BA, so that was 13 years ago. 13 years ago.
So like, you know, I'm sure that you've encountered your fair share of like opportunities that didn't pan out and failures etc.
Of course I have. You know, it's so interesting. I still remember this lady. I cannot remember her name, but she taught product design, and she had these amazing great big glasses. I can see her in my mind's eye. She said on the very first day of foundation, she said, look, she said, it's not the people with raw talent that are going to be successful. She said it's the people that come in every single day, they grind away, hard workers, they are the ones that prevail, and they are the ones that do well.
Perseverance.
And not to kind of toot my own trumpet, but I'm such a good example for that. Because I was I certainly at school level was not the most talented artist in the room, definitely not, but I think that's probably because painting and drawing wasn't my thing necessarily in that way. But I think because I knew what I needed to do in terms of work really hard and be there every day and soak as much up as I possibly could, and just have my head down, probably sound really boring, have my head down the whole time, that has then led me to be able to now do what I do.
Yeah.
Of course you need to be good at something to begin with, but you don't need to be the best because you hone that. You hone that through 6 years of education.
And then there's also your wonderful book.
Oh yes, my book. I love my book. Yeah. Shall I grab my book?
Yes.
It's hiding behind here.
We definitely, they are colourful.
Well, ignore the pink, the bit of washi tape on it. It's just to show
I was
that's
gonna
my
say,
copy.
you know, the saying, never judge a book by its cover, but I think in this instance you can.
You can definitely judge this one. So this, again, another labour of love. I think that's the theme between, I love the green aside, between everything I do. It's all a labour of love. So I was asked to write this quite a few years ago. I love that one. It just shows what is
Lovely.
This is the first book that was ever published showing people how to make passementerie. And it is written not for a Big Bertha type of loom. It's written for a really accessible, easy to use loom at home. Because had I written this book for this loom, I think hardly anyone would have bought this, because this is different kettle of fish. I'm absolutely thrilled with it. The publishers did such an amazing job. And you know the thing, and I had it last week as well, a lady in Australia bought my book and she probably only bought it from me a month and a half ago, and she sent me an email and she's already made things, and she took them to the beach because it was all inspired by the beach, laid them out on the sand and then took a picture and emailed me. And I just think this is just amazing to see that people are actually making things for themselves from the book. I just thought that's perfect. I wrote it for other people to just enjoy it, and also really important to try and stop the craft from dying out.
Yeah.
There was this lady that said to a friend of mine, this passementerie maker called Claire, you shouldn't write a book because you give all your trade secrets away and then everybody's going to know how to do it and they're all going to copy you. But if you don't share your knowledge, that's how things do die out. And once they die out from a particular country, they're never coming back again.
Yeah.
So it's such a silly mindset to have. You know, and it's highly unlikely anyone's going to set up a passementerie business having read the book and then take all our work. I mean, the chances of that happening, I think, would be very slim.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I do think there's a massive difference. You know, recently we interviewed someone who works with milk, Tassel, and, you know, she has spent 9 years developing her own technique, trial and error, This is different. She, like, innovated something that literally no one's ever done.
Yeah.
So I understand her protecting it. But
Of
this
course.
this is a heritage craft
Correct.
that's already been done for centuries and by lots of people.
And around the world.
This is not, you shouldn't need to be protecting this. That needs to be shared.
Exactly. And you know, as you say, it's totally different for Tess. That is her own invention.
Yeah, that's her intellectual property, and I think that's the difference.
To protect that, because that's very special. But as you say, it's working with techniques that are literally as old as time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no secret about weaving.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
It's just how you then take that knowledge and then what you do with it and how you apply it.
Yeah. I usually, as my last question, I usually ask someone what is their dream commission. But when I asked you what that might be,
I've thought of something.
Well, you have, good, because originally when I said that to you, you said, "Oh well, I've already done the Samuel and Sons collaboration, and I've already written my book, so I'll need some time to think about it."
No, I thought about it in the interview
good.
in a couple of hours. Yes, I would absolutely love. So Hermes made a passementerie scarf in 1960, and I'm desperately trying to track down the perfect colourway. I've seen it, but I keep missing out. It's a very rare colourway they made. Big 90 by 90 scarf, and it's like a Francois something or another was the designer, and it's tassels, a bit like this, hanging down off these kind of support. And they reissued it in the 2000s, and I'm going to track it down and I'm going to wear it, and it's going to be a business expense because it's part of my job.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely love to one day have my work on reinterpreted by a designer for Hermes on a scarf.
Oh,
I just think that would be incredible.
Oh, that's a great answer.
And
I'm
wearing one today, actually, and this is... I've got a couple of them from this particular designer. I believe his name is Gianpaolo, but I'm going to have to rootle around and find his name because it's on here somewhere. If I could pick anyone, it would be him to reinterpret my work as an Hermes scarf, because he has the most amazing style. This one is fabulous. It's the Hermes, you can see like the horse bit that's often on the scarves. But because I'm a bit of an Hermes nerd, I read up all about it and the inspiration, and he hand cut stamps and then stamped it all by hand. That's why it's all offset or off-registered in the printing to capture that feel. So that would be the dream.
Amazing.
And it might not happen until I'm 85, but we're going to plug away at that. If I put it into the universe, hopefully it will come back to me.
So collaboration with Gianpaolo for Hermes.
For Hermes, that would, and I would buy all the scarves, No, I couldn't afford to buy all the scarves. I would just look at them all. But that would be, I think that would be amazing. Not the fact that it's Hermes, but it's the fact that the artistry is next level.
Yeah. Hermes is the epitome of crafts.
It's the epitome of crafts, it is.
We can argue about the price tag, that's a separate thing, but the level of excellence in crafts is just unmatched.
The belief in craft.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe this chap would look at my work and think, no way, that's not my cup of tea, but I just think he would interpret it beautifully.
Well, thank you so much. It has been, just totally infectious enthusiasm. Is
that a good word, to be infectious?
With enthusiasm, yes. Is that not the word? Infectious enthusiasm. Good. I'm sort of. See, sometimes when I say things as a French person, I inadvertently sort of swap the and then I'll say an idiom that I think is in English, and actually I've heard it in French. Anyway,
no, I
it
love
happens.
that. I love being infectious in a positive way. I'm going to put that on my business card.
Oh, well, thank you so much,
welcome.
Elizabeth.
Thank you for coming.
I've linked Elizabeth's website below, and of course, if you can get yourself to a Samuel & Sons showroom, I highly recommend it so that you can admire the collaboration with Elizabeth in person. If you have any questions about passementerie, please put them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them or get Elizabeth's input if I can't. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot, especially as at the moment this channel is entirely self-funded. So please spread the word. Like, share and subscribe. See you next week. I love that we're both in red.
I know. We coordinated ahead of time. At least I'm not wearing stripes. I almost put on my new striped little jumper. Blue and white stripes with this cardigan over the top. Nice. Yeah.